roast. We have a lamb roast going on tomorrow, so it's roast season. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
now I
yeah.
think I'm going to make some chips, some homemade chips. You know, the best way to do homemade chips is, the slicer thing that you peel off carrots and like
Mandolin.
skin with? Yeah, so you use that, but you just
Yeah.
keep going with on the potato, soak those in some cold water,
Oh.
toss those in some salt and olive oil, avocado oil, throw that into your air fryer for like 10 minutes on 400. Well, yeah, about 400. Toss it halfway through, perfectly crisp. Put it on a basket with some bread, with some paper towel. Add a little pinch of salt. Good.
Dude, I I don't even have an air fryer. I'm about to go get one.
You
Yeah.
should.
Gonna Facebook Marketplace me an air fryer real
You
quick. All
should, dude.
right, so
They're
you can
amazing.
Air
we
fryers are
get
fire.
we get cooking shows and cooking tips and business tips
Hey,
here.
you heard it from me first.
Let's go.
It is. Eric,
All
leave
right,
me.
yeah, Yemi, what unique skills can you share with us to add to our stuff here? We got a good cooking tip for potato chips. What you got?
Well, no, no cooking skills yet,
Okay.
but my wife's birthday is this weekend,
Woohoo!
so
Congrats.
gonna be taking her to see the Dinner Detective.
Oh, it's like a
Yeah,
dinner mystery type
yeah,
thing.
like a murder mystery thing. Going up to Louisville.
Nice.
There's one in Lexington.
Interesting.
Though. Yeah, we're gonna go there, see that, do
Okay.
that. So yeah,
That sounds like fun.
Sweet.
I
I've
would
never
love to do
been
one
one
of
of
those.
those. Yeah, tell me what it's like when
I will. I will.
you're done.
She's into that kind of stuff, murder mystery, figuring out who done it, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
that sounds like what
Sweet.
it's like. What was it called? What is that train that someone gets murdered on? Not Polar Express.
Orient Express.
Yeah, Orient Express.
Not the
That's awesome. Oh, that's great.
Definitely not the
Tom,
Polar Express.
Tom Hanks in a slightly different role for that. Oh, that's fantastic.
Well, today,
Scaling.
fellas, we're going to be talking about scaling without breaking.
Hey, that sounds like a great idea.
Growth pains
Yes.
and gains.
Pains
no
and
pain, no
gains.
gain.
Kind of feel like we're in a bodybuilding podcast here all of a sudden.
I am
and gains.
Yemi. He is Aram.
Yeah.
He make you to pump you up.
Up you up, boys. Scaling
It's
without
okay
breaking.
to break every once in a while, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's half the fun.
It's all
Yeah.
good. That's where
As
the
long as you
pain
get
gets
back
severe.
up. Exactly.
There we go. Winter talk.
Good talk.
Winter talk.
So let's just open that up a little bit on the scaling side. So why would you scale, for one, right? That seems kind of obvious. You're at a phase of growth, but what are maybe some signals that a company is ready or maybe past being ready? They're overdue for scaling. What would be the situation where, like, hey, this company needs to grow, it needs to go on the next step? What are some indicators of that from your guys' perspective?
Well, I can speak from an e-commerce perspective. Once you throw out some test ads and you get your, preliminary test ads going, and they're profitable, meaning you're either breaking even or making a little bit of profit on it, then that is an opportunity to where you can then test that. Okay, maybe I'll throw a little bit more money in here and then wait another week and see if it's the same as profitable. And if that is, I'll throw a little bit more money. And of course, if you're talking about from the manufacturing side and you're not necessarily drop shipping it, or you already have a ton of inventory, that obviously is something that you really want to make sure that you plan out. And if you can get enough inventory to basically last you for a quarter, and you can say, well, this ad is performing really well. If I throw, um, I don't know, X amount at it, I'm going to get X amount back. Then, and all that's data driven. And if you can track that data over a course of whatever month, where you're just doing the same amount of money, and it's consistently bringing in, you're selling 5 units and making 20%, whatever on the top, then um, you can kind of predict, okay, if I put double amount of this money in here, then yes, there might be a week or
Okay.
two of offset, but um, that's what I would say. But a company being ready, like that's really dependent on a lot of different metrics and like what your overall goal of being ready is. Like, is your goal to be profitable and make money, or is it to sell, or is it to get downloads?
Yeah.
Like, is it to get new clients, new leads? Like, that's really a whole different podcast, honestly, a whole different episode
Sure.
on that.
Because you could probably make the case that like maybe the key indicator for scaling is that you're just ready to do more work and get on
Exactly.
with it, right? Like if it's not going to come always like a package in the mail. It says, congratulations, you can now scale your guys. Like it's just
Hey, hey,
probably
hey, you won.
level
Get
up.
this scratch off. Get your code.
It's great.
What systems do you
Jeez.
guys think must be in place for you to scale? What do you think? Like, in terms of infrastructure and stuff like that, and I know it's different for every industry. And I know for e-commerce it's different because it's digital, but what do you
Yeah.
guys think, like system-wise, um, what needs to happen, at least for you, Aram? I know that, and you, Yemi, you guys have different aspects versus digital. What do you guys, when you think ahead, like, okay, I need X amount of in order to bring on this other client?
Hmm. You go first, Sammy. I'll share a couple things on the funniest side. So
Yeah, I think that the big thing is going to be just having systems and processes in place in terms of this is the process for this, this is the process for that. Um, with scaling, what it's doing is it's taking I think it takes ownership out of the day to day involvement of executing the thing. So, for example, for let's say you have a marketing agency, for example, and you get a certain amount of clients. Well, now I know that I've delivered this result for these clients. I can predictably generate this result, and now I need this many people to be able to service this many clients to generate that result. But you've got to know what those numbers are. You've got to know your numbers. You've got to know
mm,
what the processes are for doing your thing, for executing your thing, so that even if, like, for example, I've heard it said, they use the hit by a bus thing. If someone was hit by a bus, could you recreate what they do?
mm,
Do you have
yeah,
it written down? And in order to
right,
scale, you need that in place. There can't
yeah,
be a bottleneck, basically.
yeah, yeah. I can speak from when like this hasn't worked for me, and it was just because when especially like when you hire, right, as you scale, generally you're gonna have to bring on more personnel, and what Yemi
Hmm.
said about having things written down. It's not even that complicated. It's like basic HR stuff. So it's like, hey, if I'm going to bring somebody and onboard a new employee to service a new contract or whatever it is, how easy is it for them to come in, get onboarded, and know what they're supposed to do, right out of the gate without like a 2 week orientation, process? Because you don't want to be doing that, right? You can't, manually bring every person up to speed over a great length of time. And just having a like a funnel of sorts where it's like start here, sign this paperwork, then go here. Here's our procedure for this. Here are our core values. Here's what you're going to be doing on this shit. Like just having that written out will save you an awful lot of time, because if you don't have it written out, then you're going to either be manually explaining it, or your manager is going to be manually repeating it to every person that comes on. So for scaling, when it comes to the hiring side, having as much of this on paper is going to decrease a lot of your time. And generally, when you think of scaling in a lot of industries, not all of them, I'm sure e-commerce is a little different, but in a lot of industries, that generally means that you're bringing on more bodies, on the payroll or contractors or whatnot. And
Hmm.
so
You have to budget that out
those are
too.
things you can, yeah, got to budget it out. Yeah, you got to know. you got to know what your expense, how that's going to increase with the scale, right? Because if
Mm-hmm.
you, and so this is particularly true for me when I went from residential to commercial cleaning, right? the the numbers work entirely different. You make more money in commercial cleaning, but you have a much longer wait time on funds because residential clients are paying you the day of. Commercial clients are paying you usually 30 days to 90 days after you're done with a month's work. So that's a total different ball game in terms of cash flow. So yeah, just being educated and aware of that on the front end will really help you out for sure.
And I guess this kind of goes into, you mentioned that, Aram, like what kind of what challenges, come up from like a rapid team expansion. In your case, you went from residential to commercial. There's a whole different. I imagine it's a different demeanor in terms of people you put in a commercial space versus those you put in a residential space.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
is, yeah. Yeah, big challenge is definitely just people, right? When you are growing a little bit more organically and you have more time to bring on people in slower batches, it's easier because you can work off a lot of
Mm-hmm.
personal referrals. When you need to hire like 5 people very quickly for something that's starting, that gets a little different. Or maybe you got to bring in double digits. And it's like, hey, so I I struggled there on the initial runs with that. What helped me the best overcoming that was actually group interviews. And this was actually a trick I got from another podcast where the guy was like,
That's
hey, you should
interesting.
be having group interviews. Yeah. So at the height of when I was like needing to hire people more regularly, we would have group interviews basically once a month, and it was just a rolling thing. So I'd have them, either in Winchester or here. Actually, I think at one point I was having once a month in Lexington and once a month in Winchester because we had accounts out in Winchester as well. And so what that looked like was I would just show up and I'd have a rolling, basically advertisement for positions, and people would reach out and say, "Okay, this is the group interview. Come at this time this day." And you can have anywhere from 5 to 15 people there at any one of these interviews, and you're doing an early interview with all the people that are there, and then picking from that pool of people, and you give them a very small bit of homework. So the people that seem to stand out, you say, okay, cool, you're going to send me X, Y, and Z from here. And then once they do that, okay, this person follows directions, and then maybe I'll have a quick follow-up call with them, assuming their background check passed, all those other like requirements, then they're hire ready. Now, I may not have a position for 4 people that are all the way through the system right now, but I will need that over the next couple of months. So, what the group interview allows you to do is always have a cache of people that have fully cleared and are ready to hire. And in 2 months from now, I may have 8, 9, 10 people that are ready to hire. They've all, maybe most of them, maybe 60% of them have already taken other jobs, so they're no longer available. But there are still 2 or 3 that are like still ready to work, and they're ready to go. I don't have to start the interview process of 2 or 3 weeks right then. They've already been cleared. So that just gives you just a kind of a continual flow. So that was a challenge for me with expansion. That's how we handled it, and it was really, really, really helpful. So
Hmm. Okay.
yeah, little
Yeah,
stuff
I
on
don't really
that.
have anything to add.
Eric, I want to know specifically though on your end, and Yemi, you might speak of this, but when you were in e-commerce, I know you've shared stories at times with customer service, and obviously when
Yeah.
you're dealing a lot with inventory and products. At the height of like scaling for you, did you run into problems or come up with innovative solutions on the customer service aspect particularly? Because I imagine that takes a different little hit.
Um, so I scaled way too fast. I scaled from doing $1,000 a week to 100 grand in a week in 2 weeks, and
That's pretty fast.
and yeah, and
Ooh, I'm just thinking of the
and
nightmare with your merchant,
and I
bro.
did not think about the customer service
Gosh.
aspect and how many times people would want to know where their tracking number was, and these dumb questions that literally everyone asks, and it's literally they're all the same, and I'm just copy and pasting my answers from this document. Um, and that's when I
That's hilarious.
realized uh, that I needed to hire customer service people, and that goes back to the the question earlier about having documents in place with the list of questions. I already had that for myself. I could just say, hey, here
Okay.
you go, copy this. My problem was is that
Okay.
I did not want to hire like good customer service people. Oh, okay, that's bad. Because there are really good customer service people outside the US, so that's true. But I got caught up in hiring like the really cheaper, where English is their like second language, and
Yeah.
um, they sound great on the phone or on Skype in terms of English, but their writing was really bad. And that's why I was like,
Uh,
okay, I need you to just don't add anything, just copy and paste exactly what I tell you to copy and paste. And
Interesting.
but the problem is I didn't have a lot of time to vet any of these guys. And so what I
Okay.
ended up doing was I found this really great woman and her family, and I was like, okay, why don't you be the manager, and then I'll just hire your family to be the rest of the customer support people. And that was the best move in the
Interesting.
Philippines. That was the best move
Huh.
because you have the mom basically managing the kids and her sons to do the customer service, and it was great. And then that's when I saw that, uh, and we had great customer service. And then we had a hiccup where the supplier. This was a different supplier. This is after the 25 grand ran away and stuff like that. This is later. We had another hiccup because to another I moved I had to move suppliers, so I moved to a different place, different manufacturer and everything. And I was like, are you guys prepared for 100 grand a week? Like, are you guys prepared for, I don't
Hmm.
know, was it 5,000 units or something to move 5,000 units? They said that they could. They said that they had my labels, and I just, I have the physical product, they have all everything. Turns out they weren't ready. So
Nice.
another hiccup there. But that's another story. That's another lesson to learn in terms of manufacturing and that's a whole nother episode. But yeah, customer service, huge. Do not scale without at least having one customer service person, and
Hmm.
definitely have that paper with the frequently asked questions. And you, as the entrepreneur, should do customer service at least once, so you know who your customers are,
Yeah.
you know what questions they're asking, and you need to monitor your customer support people to even make sure, like, are their attitudes following the standards of what I want my company to be presented? Because I had to let some people go who were very rude to my customers, and they went so far as to go give bad reviews on the product on how rude the customer service was. And I'm like, just give them the refund. I don't, just give them an
Yeah.
extra
Right.
product. It doesn't cost us anything. The review costs us more than the $10 product that they're asking
So,
for.
oh, so the customer was having just a bad time. They went and they left you a review
They
because of
left
the
a bad
customer
review
service. Okay. Okay.
because the person would
Dang.
not give a refund. And the person
Mm.
should have contacted me, was like, this person really wants a refund. I know the policy is no refunds past 30 days or whatever, but this person
Yeah.
wants one. They're being persistent. They should have went, and I told them, but that was the manager was just trying to, like, I don't know. I don't try that. That's the thing. You have to really drill that in, because sometimes managers will think they have your best interest in the company at heart because they believe in the company, where they
Yeah.
don't put the customer first. And that's one of the big things that you need to do, at least in e-commerce, but probably on every business, is put the customer first.
Yeah,
Not saying the customer is always right. That's not true. But
Sure.
put the
Sure.
customer first is a good thing to live by.
I mean, customer service is really an extension of the business. I mean, of the sales department. With sales, you're getting them in the door,
Mm.
you're selling them on why they should do
Hmm.
business with you.
Mm-hmm.
Customer service simply reinforces
It's
why they should
loyalty.
continue doing business with you.
Yeah.
And so if
Yeah.
you don't have, if that's not in place, if you don't have the good customer service in place, then it's gonna fall through the cracks. It's easier to keep a customer than to find a new one.
It is.
Yep.
100%.
Yep. It's true. It's
Yeah.
true.
So,
It's good stuff.
I guess moving into another topic, but it kind of has to do with this, is kind of like, how can we, as leaders, as trying to create a project, how can we like anticipate and manage these kind of negative effects, like the negative effects of having to, terrible customer support at the beginning, because I was getting, that was
Mm.
overwhelming. How can we manage that while scaling? And should maybe we should consider, how quickly are we scaling? Like, because the effects, like I already gave, are pretty substantial. If I go from
Yeah.
selling 10 units a week to suddenly selling, over 1,000 a week, what are some of your guys' experiences in that?
Well,
Because
one way you can anticipate it is by listening to our podcast, so we can
that's
tell you
true.
about what
Tips
happens.
and
And
tricks.
then when you're about to launch an e-commerce company, you can come here first, and
Hey,
that's how you anticipate it.
yeah,
So,
if you're going to launch an e-commerce company, just send us a
yep,
note. There's a little text box in the description. Hit that, and
yep.
we'll see all those and ask any question you want. We can create an episode around
We
it.
only charge, what is it, like $350 an hour, I think, for consulting. Is that
Yeah, something like
something like
that. Maybe 500. I don't know. We haven't figured it out.
so yeah. Send us a no. It's just that was a joke. That was a joke. We don't charge for your text. But yeah,
Yeah.
no,
You
seriously,
might do, but they
I
don't.
you just like speak for yourself.
Eric and Aram
So,
don't, but
if you want the low end professionalism, go talk to those guys. No, I'm joking, but that is I'm being funny, but like that is true. This is why you read and look this stuff up, because you. I always tell people, I personally have not had a new idea in business or probably anything in my life ever. Like I've never had a creative thought, and I'm not a creative, so that's part of it. But I realized early on that this has been done. Everything that you're doing has been done somewhere by somebody, and they probably screwed it up, and they probably figured out how to do it right. So if you'll just go look it up and do some research, there's probably an answer there. So
Hmm.
yeah, my short answer to that is, if you're trying to anticipate and manage problems you might have, just go talk to somebody who's been in your industry, or at the very least find a book by somebody that's been on the industry and read up on it, and they'll tell you a good, what, 80-90% of the problems you're going to run into, and then just do what they did and avoid what they avoided or what they didn't avoid, and then like that's like more than half the battle. So I think people overthink this whole subject a bit. He's like, oh man, like how is it's like, well, it's like you're probably jumping into, if you have a lot of problems, you're likely jumping into something with very, very little work on the front end to see what problems you could have avoided.
I would also
So
add, I would say the biggest hurdle is getting started in the first place. If you're on the
yeah,
fence and you've read all these
yeah,
books, you've listened to all these podcasts, and you're still not doing it, then you're afraid to start to begin with. And the way that I overcame that is to just start and
hmm,
not care about failing or not. And that, I think, is the biggest problem with our society today, is we're afraid of no, and we're afraid of failing. We're afraid to ask for 50% off because we're afraid of rejection. We're afraid to go ask that person out because we're afraid of rejection. We're afraid
hmm,
of starting
yeah,
a project because we're afraid that we're going to fail and prove everybody else that told us that we would right. And then we take a hit personally. You got to screw all that out and
hmm,
just start already. It's as easy as it has ever been to start an e-commerce store. Like, you can have one up and running
hmm,
in a week.
yeah,
So
it's good.
put all that thought to actual, like, stop wasting your time. If you're not going to do it, stop researching, stop doing that, and go to your 9 to 5 and go live your life with your family. But if you're actually going to
Yeah,
do it, I mean, think about it that way. If you're not going to do it, you're just wasting your life and your time. And you're just talking about stuff, and you're making your own, like, what is that word where a guy who just talks and doesn't ever do any action? I forget what that word is. But that's the guy that you will eventually sound like. No one will take you seriously. So just go out and start something,
yeah,
fail at it, and at least you failed, but you started. So
yep,
anyway, sorry, that's my little
it's
snippet
good.
there.
It's good.
speaking of failure, can either of you share a real life example of a company that scaled successfully and one that is a swing and a miss.
Hmm.
I would say my first company was a swing and a miss. But going back to what I originally was saying, I tried and I convinced some people to give me money. And, I was 18. It was a media filtering app that would filter out, language. It was for families. It would filter out language. It would filter out scenes. It would filter out, basically, you could type in specific words and it would filter out that. You could replace the bleep with your own thing if you wanted
For like
to,
entertainment,
for
media's
entertainment.
stuff.
I didn't know what I
Okay.
was getting into.
Yeah.
I didn't do the research, but I just
Hmm.
dived headfirst into that idea. And a year and a half later, I shut it down because too much money had been spent. I couldn't raise any more, and we didn't have a product. And I pivoted, and this is a good thing that you guys should take is just because you have a broad vision of where the big overarching thing is, doesn't mean that's where you're going to start. And if you try to build that big giant
Mm.
company at the very beginning, the probability is failure. But if you zoom
Hmm.
in on a very specific core set of what makes the idea, and you just focus on that, then your probability of success is the same as any company that is, bootstrapping and just like going, it's like
Yeah.
drilling in on a laser beam. So that I didn't realize that it was my first company, but I tried anyway, and I gave it all I had. And yes, it was super hard, very emotionally roller coaster. I'm failing, but you get back up and you keep going. But that's mine in terms of what failed. What a
Yeah.
company. What do you think Aram scaled successfully, while also kind of went
Uh,
through a hard time?
well, I love the Uber example for this
That's a good
because
one.
Uber is so big and this has so much history and there's so much on it now that you can read endlessly about Uber, right? So like when I'm
Hmm.
talking about, do your research, like like Uber's about as much content on this, I think, as you'll ever get. And they're obviously around and known globally. Like the word Uber is become a verb now, right? So like it's
Mhm.
successful for sure on many 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 metrics. But they had probably some of the most rocky expansion stories because for them, you talked to like early on, Eric, about what's your goal, what are you trying to do, and I think one of the things that got really early decided with Uber was global expansion. Like we're gonna do this now that it's kind of taken off, and we're kind of just outside of like a couple pockets in California. We're gonna like do this globally, and that insistence on global expansion, I think, is probably why they ran into so many problems along the way because that was such a lofty thing. You're something started in
Yeah, they
2009. If you
overextended a lot too.
just
It was like,
hardcore,
by the way,
right?
they have a Netflix special if you guys want to go check it out.
Yeah, that's worth checking out for sure. So yeah, I won't get into a lot of specifics there. I would just say go watch an Netflix special, do some reading there because they will tackle just about every subject in terms of scaling
Also,
you
go
could
watch
find.
We Crash. Um, We Crash on Apple
St-
TV is an excellent. It's about WeWork, and it's the same story except
yeah,
like they're not really around, but it's the same thing. They wanted rapid expansion, and they raised like $4 billion or something. Crazy story. So definitely go watch
yeah.
that.
I haven't seen that one yet.
I would
I need
not
to check that
follow
one out.
like I'm not saying that these are good examples of how to run your business though. 100% not saying that.
Right. Well,
No.
but that's the thing though. Sometimes knowing how to run your business well is it's seeing all the ways to do it
Yeah, you
very,
gotta
very
see how
wrong
it
and
failed,
just
how others failed.
avoiding those pitfalls. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. You got it.
It's good stuff. Yeah, boy.
Yep. Speaking of like a rapid scaling and failing, have you guys heard about Boo.com?
Uh
No.
oh. Should I
Boo.com
look this up?
was supposed to be like this online retailer. Everything that Amazon kind of is was what Boo.com was supposed to be.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
the rise and fall of them is amazing. It was back during the first .com boom or whatever, you know.
Oh, okay. This is
Yeah.
like 2000 stuff.
Yeah, 2000. So definitely
Interesting.
I think I'll send the link to y'all.
Okay. Boo.
I
Boo.com.
like
Yeah,
the
I did
name.
not
I
know
like
about
the
this.
name. It kind of reminds me of when you first said it. I immediately pictured a social media like short form content where people could go and boo boo other people's content.
Hmm.
That was the first idea that I got.
Nice.
Like, it's supposed to be stupid, like just stupid stuff, and it's like boo. I don't know. That's the first thing that got. That's the first thing that hit me.
That's
Not
funny.
down.
Boo. Good times. Good to see you, gentlemen, and happy 2025.
Yes.
Chowder.
Yeah. We'll catch you guys at the next one.
Ciao,
Mahalo.
ciao.
Peace.